He said you'd understand. That's all the waiter said before slipping her his ring. The same words echoed from years ago, the night he vanished without a trace. He said you'd understand. But she never did. Not when the wedding was canceled. Not when the obituary ran. Not when she buried a stranger today. Now the ring was back. So were the lies. And the one truth she feared most. He never left. He ran. And someone helped him. He said you'd understand. But now she's ready to make them explain. He once touched her wrist like it was glass. That morning before the fall. Before the silence, he'd kissed the inside of it, where a pale scar curled like a thread left in the fabric. She'd laughed, sleepy and barefoot, telling him, "It's from nothing. I was a clumsy kid." He hadn't believed her. He'd looked at that scar like it told the whole story. Now the scar felt colder than her fingers. The church was too bright. Someone had opened a window, and the summer heat didn't belong here. It made the perfume of lilies sickly too much. The woman in black Marla sat in the third pew alone, her veil a thin shield between her and the dead man lying just beyond the flowers. A minister murmured into silence. It wasn't a sermon. Just filler between endings. She hadn't cried. He'd always said she cried too easily. That love shouldn't flood so quickly, or else it rotted. Heartbeat hook. But his mother didn't show up. Just the caterer, 2 co-workers, and an uncle Marla never liked. His breath thick with bourbon, even at 10 a.m. Someone coughed, and it sounded like guilt. She watched the dust curl in the light over the casket lid. Closed, because there was nothing left to see. Except that the man inside had no scar on his wrist. The photo propped on the easel, their favorite from Vermont, the one she'd never deleted, had been cropped carefully. His sleeves were down, but she remembered. That scar had run diagonal, faint and pink, a leftover from the crash the police said he'd survived. The crash before the accident. She closed her eyes. Thought of the night the ring didn't fit. He had proposed like it was a secret. Not a surprise, an obligation whispered between arguments, when they still had warmth left to trade. The ring had slipped, too tight for her knuckle. She had laughed, then winced. He'd said nothing, jaw flexing. Taken it back like it burned. Heartbeat. Hook. She'd never worn it again. The waiter approached during the silence after the final prayer. It was wrong. His presence too crisp and black and white. Too young. He held something small in his palm. No tray, no condolence. Just an object between strangers. "A man gave me this," he said. "Said to bring it to you, at the funeral." Marla didn't move. The veil blurred her vision, but not enough to make the thing in his hand a mistake. It was the ring. Her breath caught not from grief, but recognition. It wasn't just the ring. It was his ring, the one he never took off, not even when angry. The one she thought had been buried with him, like a seal on a lie. Now it gleamed in a stranger's hand. Her fingers shook as she took it. The cool metal. The shallow nick on its edge where it had once struck the bathroom tile. That night he'd thrown it, after the first real fight, after she asked where he'd been. After he'd told her, "You'll understand someday." She never did. Until now. Retention spike line. But the scar should have been on the body. She stared at the ring until it blurred. A whisper pressed through memory, her voice, then his. And the thing he said that last time, softer than usual. "I'm not the man you think I am." He'd meant it literally. There was a scrape of chair legs. She looked up. Someone had come in late. No, not someone. Her. The one who should have been first through the door. Celia. The ex-wife. No one mentioned. Not even at the wake. Blonde, immaculate, eyes too calm for the moment. She stood near the back, arms folded. Around her purse, watching Marla without blinking. She knew. Marla rose, the ring curling into her palm like a promise. Her heels clicked against the marble, each step louder than the prayers. She walked to the casket. stared down at the false piece of his mouth, the waxy stillness. No scar, no trace of the man who'd taught her to make tea a certain way, who hummed when nervous, who hated the smell of lavender. This wasn't him, and yet the face was perfect. The smile lines, the lashes, the mole near his temple dot. She thought of the locket, the one he'd asked her to keep safe after Vermont. Said it was for emergencies, not sentiment. A tiny gold oval, too light to matter until she cracked it open 2 nights ago. Not a photo inside, a torn receipt. Train tickets. 2 names, one of them not his. Thumbnail moment tag. The other name was hers, not Marla, her legal name. The one almost no one used. A detail only someone truly close would know. Her stomach turned. She thought of the way he used to lock the bathroom door at night. How sometimes he'd flinch when she came up behind him. How he'd stop shaving for days after reading the news. Celia was closer now. Her heels didn't click. I told him, Celia said softly. He couldn't keep both lives. Marla turned. He didn't. Celia looked down. Her hands trembled, barely. There were things about him. He wasn't evil, just afraid. Of what? She almost asked. But the answer was there, just under the silence. A man with too many names, too many masks. Maybe he'd tried to vanish once, change the ending. Maybe he thought dying was easier than being seen. Antagonist depth line. Celia whispered, he tried to tell you. The night you asked about the scar. But she hadn't listened. Had only thought about how hard he was to love. Had never wondered what made it so. Marla stepped back. The veil slid from her hair, catching on the edge of the pew. She didn't fix it. Instead, she dropped the ring. It hit the marble once. Rolled. Came to rest beneath the casket, not buried. Not worn. Silent setup. She reached for her purse, touched the locket inside. The receipt. And the tiny flash drive taped beneath it. An old relic from a newer life. Celia didn't follow her. Just stood there, hands folded now. Face closed. Retention spike line. But the man who died hadn't left instructions for the funeral. Marla walked past the minister, past the co-workers and the uncle with bourbon breath. Out into the sun, where the lily couldn't rot and no one looked her in the eye. She didn't cry until she reached the parking lot. Not for him. Not exactly. Just for the man she might have saved. If she'd asked about the scar instead of the lie. Gut punch. Ending line. The casket sealed behind her, but the ring stayed out. He had once left a lipstick smudge on her teacup, his, not hers. A dare, a private joke between them on a winter morning. Both of them curled beneath the same knit blanket, both pretending the world didn't know. He'd worn it too well, burgundy, not red. And when she laughed, he smiled so wide it split. His lip. The blood left a second mark on the rim. She never washed that cup. Now it sat boxed in her closet, sealed with tape like the truth they never said aloud. The obituary lay folded in her lap, ink creased down the center. She'd read it 5 times. Still, it skipped the year he vanished. Still, it skipped her name, heartbeat hook. Still, it called him a devoted husband. The church smelled of wood polish and regret. She sat in the back pew this time, unseen, veil lifted. The pews were fuller today, morning made public. Even the whispers felt louder. Someone cried into a gloved hand. Another took photos near the entrance. Too discreet to stop. She studied the family. His mother's hands were clutched in prayer, but her eyes never moved, fixed forward, away from Marla. Not once had they met hers. Not since the hospital. Not since the night she'd been turned away at the nurse's desk with the quiet explanation, family only. And just like that, she was no one. The father sat stiffer than she remembered. Cane in hand, white-knuckled grip. She'd never seen him walk with one, not even when he limped after the surgery. It wasn't medical now. It was armor. The kind you hold when the truth might knock you over. And then there was the Guestbo. Okay. She hadn't meant to look, but there it sat on the small table near the candles, open, pen laid perfectly beside it. She waited for the aisle to clear, for eyes to drift elsewhere. She moved like smoke, and there it was. A signature, curved, untraceable. I'm sorry. No name, no date. Just those 2 words in black ink, slightly smudged, retention spike line, but the handwriting looked familiar left-handed, shaky like someone hiding something they still regretted. She touched the paper lightly. It was warm, as if whoever wrote. It hadn't left long ago. A rustle behind her. She turned. Celia again. This time, not dressed for mourning. A navy coat, no veil. Her lipstick was back burgundy, almost identical to the smear on that china cup. They didn't speak. Celia sat beside her, close but not touching. Her breath smelled like spearmint and grief. She passed Marla a folded paper. Not the obituary. An old photo. The 2 of them, Marla and him, on a pier. Taken by someone standing just behind Celia's shoulder. His hand rested on Marla's back. Fingers curved like he knew her spine better than his own name. I found this in his coat pocket, Celia said quietly. I thought you should have it. Marla didn't answer. Her throat closed around something bitter. The photo was weathered, as if held too often. A pause. Celia's eyes flicked toward the altar. My name's not in it either, she said. The obituary, they wrote it like he was perfect. He wasn't. No, but he was trying. Her voice cracked. And just for a breath, she wasn't the cold woman who'd stood in the shadows last time. She was someone who'd been lied to, loved half honestly. Heartbeat hook. He begged his father to tell the truth, Celia added. Even at the end. Marla blinked. He still could. Celia shrugged. He's ashamed that his son loved 2 people. That neither fit the box. There it was, shame. Threaded through generations like a birthmark. Marla looked again at the guestbook. The signature was wrong for the father. But the cane shook slightly now, tapping the floor once, twice. She tucked the photo into her purse. Next to the locket. Still unopened. She hadn't dared. Thumbnail moment tag. Now her fingers brushed the catch. It popped with a soft click. Inside, no picture. Just a strip of receipt. Again, the same station name. A different date. Tomorrow, single quotes S. Her chest hollowed. A man can't plan a getaway after his death, unless he hadn't really died. Or unless someone else had. She stood. Her legs felt foreign. I need air, she whispered. Celia didn't stop her. As she passed the aisle, the father's cane lifted. Not much, just an inch, as if to stop her. Then slowly lowered again. He looked at her. Just once. A glance steeped in something like fear. Antagonist depthline. Not of her, but of the truth she might still wake. Outside, the wind carried something floral, lilacs maybe. Her stomach turned at the sweetness. She moved to the car, hand steady on her purse. The photo. The locket. The receipt. Silent setup. And in the bottom seam of the bag, taped beneath the lining, the flash drive. He had given it to her months ago. For safekeeping, he'd said. Don't open it until I'm gone. But he hadn't said which me would be gone. Retention spike line. And the body they buried didn't have his scar. She unfolded the obituary once more, fingers brushing over the paragraph that called him beloved. She took her pen, wrote one line beneath it. There were 2 bodies that night, but only one funeral. Gut punch. Ending line. She signed it. The other woman who knew his truth. The drawer had always stuck on the left side, swollen wood. Or maybe the weight of what was inside. She remembered the sound it made when he opened it late at night. A soft tug, a grunt, then the hush of papers being shuffled too carefully. As if he were afraid the silence might catch him. Now, standing in the study with her keys trembling in her palm, Marla realized she hadn't touched the desk since he left. Not after the call, not after the obituary, not even after the ring. Some things didn't feel like hers to open. She crouched low, brushed dust from the brass handle. It left a smudge across her fingers like soot from a fire long extinguished. Lock gave on the second try. Inside, only one object, a black flash drive. No label. Just a tiny crack along its edge where the plastic had split, like it had been pried loose from something that didn't want to let go. Heartbeat hook. She almost didn't touch it. But her name was already burning on the tip of it. The office. Still smelled like him, mint and old wood, and that cinnamon gum he chewed when nervous. She blinked hard, slipped the drive into her laptop. It whirred to life the way a heart does when it remembers how to beat. One folder, one file. Witness-01 she clicked. A password prompt blinked on screen. 6 characters. She typed it without thinking. MIMSY.her. Childhood nickname. Only one person had used it after high school. Only one had whispered it during the storm while holding her like she might shatter. The file unlocked. There was no sound at first. Just static, then breathing, and then his voice. Not clear. Not rehearsed. But him. I don't know if you're watching this, Mimsy, or when. But if you are, something's happened, or will happen. And I need you to know why I left. The room closed in. She didn't blink. I recorded everything. Not to trap them. To protect you. There's more on the second drive. I had to split them up. One at the station. One here. If you're seeing this, they already know something slipped. The screen cut to footage. Blurry, time-stamped. His father, pacing near the old shed. Digging. Then burning something. A box. Marla's fingers clutched the armrest. Then more clips. Cell phone footage, papers, conversations muffled through walls, names she didn't know. One she did, Celia. And then, silence again, retention spike line. But the file kept playing even after he stopped speaking. The final 10 seconds were static. A freeze frame, the study. This room, the drawer closed, and a hand not hers slipping the flash drive inside. She paused the screen. It wasn't him in the frame. It was his father. Back then, Marla had thought the man cold, distant. But now she remembered the way his hand shook at the funeral. The cane, the way he didn't meet her eyes. How he looked not like a liar, but like a man already carrying the weight of someone else's decision. Heartbeat hook. Maybe he hadn't betrayed his son. Maybe he'd buried the only part of him left alive. She played the file again. Just the voice. I loved you, in the only way I knew. I'm sorry it wasn't safer. There was no goodbye. Only a faint click at the end. A door? A match? A gun? She sat in stillness, listening to the echo. Thumbnail moment tag. Outside the window, wind lifted the old curtain. The same one he insisted on keeping, frayed at the edge from sun-bleached years. It fluttered like breath. Her gaze moved to the bookshelf. Third row. Second book from the left. A gap. She reached for it. Pulled the book free. Inside, a folded envelope. No stamp. Her name in his handwriting. She opened it. Inside, a receipt. Train station. Tomorrow's date. Not the same one from the Locket. Not the same train. She froze. This wasn't a farewell. This was a map. Silent setup. And tucked into the envelope, beneath the receipt, a second flash drive. Labeled in marker, backup. She stared at it. The label slightly smudged. This wasn't just paranoia. It was preservation. She stood and crossed. To the drawer again. This time it slid easily open. She placed the envelope back inside, neatly, closed it softly. Locked it. Celia's voice rang in her head. He was trying. The shame that had once curled in her chest began to shift. Not toward forgiveness, but clarity. Not defiance, but a strange, humming resolve. Retention spike line. The man who disappeared recorded everything, except his goodbye. She opened the second flash drive. Gut punch. Ending line. The screen blinked once, then showed her face. He used to bite the inside of his cheek when he lied. She noticed it once during a game of cards, long before the wedding was called off, before the stories stopped matching. He smiled too easily then, but there was always blood on the tip of his tongue. Now, she saw it again on the screen. The video opened cold. No music, no transition, just him. In the small attic they'd once used for storage, light flickering from the single bulb overhead. He sat on a folding chair, knees drawn close, wearing that threadbare flannel she thought she'd burned. His voice cracked before the first line even landed. I lied to everyone, except this camera. She didn't exhale. The screen pulsed slightly with tape noise, like the old recorder had a heartbeat of its own. He looked younger, but only by a little. Eyelids heavier, jaw looser. He hadn't slept, not really. Not before this. I faked it. A pause. I had to. He rubbed at his wrist. Not the one with the scar. The other, naked, pale, like something had just been removed. Heartbeat hook. The ring was already gone. Marla leaned closer. The laptop hummed. On screen, his shoulders hunched. Further, the chair creaking beneath him like it wanted to break. I know what this looks like. Cowardice. Maybe it is. But I swear, Mimsy, I wasn't running from you. I was running from them, from what my family became, what I let happen. He looked away. Somewhere behind him, off-camera sound. Maybe footsteps. Maybe wind. I thought if I just stayed silent, it'd pass. But silence is a kind of permission. She flinched. He continued. There's a locket in the garden, under the stones by the shed. It's not jewelry. It's storage. Micro SD. Everything I didn't know how to say aloud. Marla's hand twitched toward her purse, instinctively, but no, not the same locket. That one still hung around her neck, still warm with her skin. This was another. One he never gave her. She pressed pause. Rewound 3 seconds. Listened again. He'd buried it. As if someone else might come looking. Thumbnail moment tag. I didn't record my goodbye, he said. Because I don't believe in endings anymore. Just consequences. Then he leaned in, face nearly filling the frame. You remember when we went to the lake house? When Dad fell on the stairs? That wasn't an accident. Marla sat up straighter. He was trying to stop something. Trying to stop me. I said I'd go public. With what I found in the drawer, the bank statements, the travel logs, the receipts. A flash of paper lifted on screen, just a corner. Enough to see her name, a number. A date circled in red, the night. He vanished, and Celia, he whispered. She knew. She wanted to help at first, then she got scared. Of what it would do to the family. Of what it meant for her son. Her heart punched against her ribs. He's not mine, he added quietly. Not biologically, but I loved him like he was. That's what made it hurt, what made me stay too long. Antigenous Zeppline. I think Celia still wants to fix it, he said. But she doesn't know how to live with what she didn't stop. The camera tilted slightly unsteady. I thought maybe if I left a trail, you'd find it before they erased it. Before he did. He didn't say his father's name, just stared at the lens like he couldn't. Heartbeat hook. Then came the whisper. Not his, off screen, behind the attic door. He's almost done. Marla froze. His eyes flicked sideways quickly. I have to end this one here, he said, voice tight. There's more. But if this tape survives Mimsy, don't trust what they print. Don't trust what they bury. He stood abruptly. The camera wobbled. There was a flash of something boots in the corner. A second figure, back turned. Then dash static. Retention spike line. But just before it cut, she saw something else. On the wall behind him, lipstick. A smudge. Burgundy, like the one on the teacup he once kissed for her. Someone had been there before her. left a mark, a warning, or a goodbye. She rewound it. Pause. Screenshot. The wallpaper was peeling near the smudge. She'd stared at that wall for years, never saw it. Never thought it mattered. Silent setup. Now she did. She opened the drawer beside her. Pulled the torn receipt he once folded into a locket. The dates matched. Same day. Same hour. Different truths. She looked down at the pause screen. His face blurred slightly, lips mid-syllable. I lied to everyone, he had said. And still he didn't say her name at the end. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't say sorry. CTA seed. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page. Gut punch ending line. Only the camera ever got the truth. And even it flinched. He used to press his thumb against the edge of the cassette case before sliding it into the deck slow. Deliberate, like he was asking permission to speak. She remembered that sound. The click, the hum, the silence just before truth began. Even back then, he never raised his voice. He let the tape carry what he couldn't. Now she stared at a flash drive, not a cassette. No buttons, no case, no voice to cue her. But still, she waited for the silence to breathe. One folder, 13 files. Only one open. Witness-01-. The one she'd already seen. The confession. The static. The whispered footsteps. She clicked it again anyway, just to hear him say her name. Like it still mattered. Then she tried the rest. Witness-02. Corrupted 03 through 07. Empty. 08. File not found. 9. A thumbnail. But nothing inside. 10 to 13. Gone. Like they never existed. Heartbeat. Hook. But the timestamps were still there. Dates. Hours. All sequential. All logged like ghosts, evidence of something someone once wanted to say, then silenced. She sat back. Clicked again. Nothing. The laptop made a quiet whirring noise. Like it, too, was trying to remember. She checked the properties. The files had been modified once months ago. The same month he vanished. She stared at the screen like it might flinch. Marla. New erasure when she saw it. It had a fingerprint. It had a smell like burnt paper and locked doors. And someone had erased him before. Retention. Spike line. But whoever deleted the files had watched them first. Her eyes drifted to the locket. Still warm, still unopened since that night in the attic. She cracked it now, inside. Not the micro SD. Gone. Just a torn slip of paper. Creased once, then again. Handwriting she didn't recognize. It read, "Ask your mother what she signed." Her stomach folded inward. There had never been a moment to suspect her mother. She hadn't spoken to her in years. Not since the fallout. Not since the money ran out, and the pills started showing up in tea tins. But the handwriting, it looked feminine. Curled loops. Hesitant ink. She reached for her phone. Checked the caller ID history. Her mother's number was there. Last week, missed. No voicemail. She hadn't told anyone about the flash drive. Except Celia. The name drifted through her head like a cold wind. Thumbnail moment tag. She replayed the moment from the funeral. Celia standing by the guestbook. Her coat too dry for the rain outside. No umbrella. No water spots. No grief, just lipstick. Burgundy again. Always burgundy. And when Celia hugged her, too briefly, too tightly, her hand had grazed Marla's purse. She hadn't thought much of it. Thought it was the kind of accidental touch women shared when they'd buried the same lie. Now she wondered. She opened the drawer again. Nothing else had moved, but the backup drive, the one labeled in pen, had scratches near the port, scrapes, like it had been forced in, and pulled out too fast. She plugged it in. Empty. 0 items. Silent setup. She flipped it over. On the back, beneath the plastic shell, someone had etched a symbol with a razor. A circle, split through the center. Her blood froze. She'd seen that mark before. On her father's old keychain. On documents they weren't supposed to read. On the envelope her mother burned the night her husband disappeared. It wasn't a symbol. It was a seal, a family crest no one admitted belonged to them. Antagonist depth line. He once told her, "I didn't inherit their power. I inherited their silence." Marla slid the drive into a Ziploc and tucked it into the lining of her coat. She didn't know what it was yet, but someone wanted it gone, and someone else had tried to leave it. For her. She turned off the laptop. Not because she was done, but because the room no longer felt safe. Not with the screen glowing. Not with the locket open. Heartbeat hook. The silence in the room wasn't empty. It was watching. She stepped outside. The dusk had sunk too fast. Across the street, a car idled. No lights on. No one visible behind the glass. She closed the door, locked it twice, then opened the closet. Behind the old coats, one of us still hanging, she reached for the shoebox. Inside, a phone, not hers, one he'd used for work. One she never turned on. She did now. One message. No number. Just a file name. Witness-12.mp4. She tapped it. Error. Deleted. Then, as she started to close the app, another message slid through. Not from the past, from now. You weren't supposed to find it. She dropped the phone. The screen cracked. Retention spike line. But the crack ran right through his face, his contact photo. Still saved in her favorites. She stood in the center of the room, unsure what still belonged to her. The tapes weren't just missing. They'd been watched. Selected. Erased. Someone had made sure she only saw the first confession, not the others, not the ones that named names. CDA seed. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page. She knelt beside the couch, breath shallow. Her hands slid under the fabric where they used to hide. Spare keys. Her fingers found a shape. Plastic. A cassette. Not digital. Analog. Labeled in his handwriting. For her, when they find me. Gut punch ending line. But the tape was blank until she played it backward. When she was 8, her hand trembled so badly during piano recitals she had to press her palms against her knees to keep them still. He'd teased her once, called it stage fright, but later slipped her a note folded in fourths. Even earthquakes make music. Now, decades later, her hand trembled again. Not from nerves. From knowing too much. The pawnshop was barely marked. A flickering red open sign buzzed above the door like a lie still trying to convince itself. Marla hesitated outside. Her reflection in the glass looked thinner, older, not tired tight. Like fabric pulled too hard at the seams. The locket hung cold against her collarbone. Heartbeat hook. She stepped inside. The bell above the door didn't ring. The man behind the counter wore readers and a wedding band that spun too, loosely on his finger. He didn't look up right away, just finished wiping down a small radio with more care than it deserved. "You open?" she asked, voice dry. "For the right things," he said, then met her eyes. She slid a photo across the counter. The laptop, gray, scratched, custom decal on the corner. An old band logo only real fans would remember. "You buy this?" He squinted. "Couple years back, yeah. We log everything. You want to know who dropped it off?" Marla nodded once. He turned to an old ledger, flipped pages that smelled like carbon dust and time. "Woman. Said it was her brother's. Sold it cheap. Cash only." He tilted the book so she could read the name. J. Calloway. Her stomach knotted. That name hadn't been said aloud in years. Not since the disappearance. Not since the report with the blurred photo. His sister. Junie. The girl with the gold hoop, earrings and the matching laugh. The one who vanished the same night he did. Declared legally dead after 6 months. No body. No leads. Retention spike line. But the photo hid something worse. Marla reached into her coat. Pulled out the receipt she'd found beneath the locket's lining. Train station. Date. 1 seat booked. Name used, J. Calloway. She held it beside the ledger. "It was her," she whispered. "She had the laptop." The man behind the counter looked again, slower now. Didn't seem dead to me. She didn't answer. Just stared at the ledger like it might finish the story for her. Thumbnail moment tag. In the corner of the page was a red ink checkmark shaped like a falling berg. She traced it with her nail. He asked, "You need a copy of the sale record?" She hesitated, then nodded. "All right," he said, "but you didn't get it from me." He walked into the back. Marla turned to the case beside her. Watches, wallets. A wedding band scuffed, flat, unloving. She touched the glass, and there, tucked behind a tarnished money clip lipstick, a small gold tube, same shade, Burgundy. She mouthed at her own breath. It hadn't been Celia's. It had been Junie's. A memory surfaced. A dinner, wine-stained teeth. The two of them laughing about nothing. Marla had excused herself to take a call. When she came back, Junie had looked shaken. Pale, he brushed her hair from her face. Gently, like someone apologizing through silence. Antagonist depth line. He wasn't protecting. Junie. Junie had been protecting him. The door behind the counter creaked. The man returned, handed her a photocopy. "Didn't catch your name," he said. She folded the paper once tight. "That's the point." She walked out. The air had cooled. Rain lingered in the trees, but hadn't fallen yet. The weight of the locket thudded softly with each step. She sat in her car. Closed the door. Silent setup. Pulled a pen from the glove box. Wrote a name on the back of the paper. Detective Moraine. The one who never called back. The one who marked the case inactive. She circled it once, then again. Her hand shook. Harder now. Not fear. Velocity. She took out her phone. Opened the cracked voice memo app. Started recording. "This is Marla Hart. I have evidence in the disappearance of Jonathan Calloway. And possibly his sister Junie. I believe the laptop sold to Southside Pawn belonged to him. I have reason to believe it was sold after he went missing. And that Junie was alive when she sold it." Her voice broke. "She may still be." Retention. Spike line. She wasn't the only one who vanished that night. A flicker in her memory. Junie, standing in the hallway, one hand on her stomach. Like she was hiding something under her coat. No coat. No bulge. A bandage. Small. Fresh. Like a recent injection or... Marla blinked. Pulled the photo back out. Checked the date of the pawn receipt. Exactly 2 weeks after Junie's declared death. Someone helped her fake it, and someone wanted Marla to believe it worked. She played the last tape. Again. Backwards. The static swirled. Then, his voice. Fainter. "This isn't the end. It's the cover. CTA seed. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page." She looked in the rearview mirror. No one there. Still. She drove without lights until she was 5 blocks from home. Gut punch ending line. In her back seat, the lipstick tube rolled. Once then stopped facing her. The initials etched into the cap were hers. But the lipstick wasn't. The first time she met his mother, Marla brought tulips, yellow ones. Too cheerful for the occasion, but she was trying. The woman accepted them with a smile that didn't touch her eyes and placed them in a chipped vase without water. Now years later, she walked up the same stone path, past the same porch swing that hadn't moved since he disappeared. The house looked the same, tidy, rehearsed. Like no one inside ever screamed. She didn't knock. The door was already ajar. Heartbeat. Hook. Someone had been expecting her. Inside, the hallway stretched longer than it used to. She took it step by step, hand brushing the wall like she needed balance. The smell was the same, lavender and floor polish. Clean in the way grief pretends to be tidy. She found them in the sitting room. His father stood by the mantel, polishing a cufflink already gleaming. His mother sat in the corner, hands folded, eyes fixed on the lace runner that had always covered the coffee table. No one spoke first. Marla reached into her coat, pulled out the USB, set it on the table like a loaded gun. "Where are the other files?" His father's jaw tensed. "We don't know what you're talking about." Marla didn't blink. "You deleted them." Still silence. Then his mother's hand twitched. "I want the truth," Marla said. "Not the polished version, not the obituary. The truth." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The weight was already here, pressing down on all of them. "Marla," the mother began, but the father cut her off. It was complicated. "Heartbeat hook, so was love," she said. "But I stayed." He turned away. She turned to the mother. "You told me you didn't know where you went. You hugged me and said you were sorry." Tears pooled in the woman's eyes, but she blinked them away like they weren't allowed. Her lips parted. "It wasn't supposed to end this way," she whispered. "What way?" "We thought he'd come back," she said. "We thought it was temporary. That once the dust settled." "What dust?" Marla stepped closer. "What did he know?" She reached into her coat again, pulled the photo from the Pawnshop. Junie, the laptop. "Alive, 2 weeks after she was declared dead. I found this." His mother looked down and broke, not loudly, not with a scream, but with a soft sound, like something unfolding too fast to be caught. She reached beneath the cushion of the chair, pulled out a photograph. "Don't show her that," the father said sharply. But it was too late. The image landed face up on the coffee table, right beside the USB. Marla leaned in. Her own breath left her. A beach. Sunlight. Him. Alive, smiling. Not hidden, not bruised. And beside him her. Not Junie. Not Celia. Her best friend. Paige. From the wedding party. The one who fluffed her veil and whispered, "You don't have to do this if you're scared." The one who offered to handle the playlist when he left the rehearsal dinner early. The one who disappeared from her life with no explanation 3 months later. Retention. Spike line. But the photo hid something worse. On Paige's wrist his watch, the one Marla gave him for their anniversary. Thumbnail moment tag. It was turned inward, like he didn't want to forget the time. Marla stared at it. Then at them. "You knew," she said, voice hollow. "You let me bury a man who wasn't dead while he started over with her." His father finally looked her in the eye. "He was scared," he said. "You would have made him confess. You always pushed." That terrified him. She laughed. One short, humorless breath. "You're damn right I would have made him confess." His mother covered her face with one trembling hand. "He didn't plan it," she said. "It wasn't a love story. It was survival." "Is that what you call betrayal now?" The mother's voice grew smaller. "He came to us broken. Said he was being watched. Said someone was coming for him. He didn't want to drag you into it." "So he dragged her?" Silence set up. Marla stepped back, grabbed the photo, and slid the USB into her pocket. Her fingers grazed the edge of another item tucked deep in the lining. A second flash drive, one she hadn't opened yet. Still labeled only with his initials. She turned to go. "You won't find her," his father said behind her. "I don't need to," she replied. "She found me." A pause. She sent the lipstick. The air left the room. They understood what it meant. They just didn't know what it would cost. CTA seed. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page. Outside, the porch light flickered. Marla walked past the tulip bed, new ones. Red this time, not cheerful. Just vivid. Just loud enough to matter. She reached the car, hands still shaking, but not from grief, from clarity, from proof, from fury honed down to a single blade. She looked at the photo. Again, zoomed in, on the table beside them, Paige and him sat a wedding. Program, Marla and Jonathan, October 14 gut punch ending line. The photo had been taken the day before their wedding. The cabin didn't look like a secret. It looked like rest. One window cracked open, curtains still moving like breath. Pine needles gathered along the porch edge. The door slightly ajar, as if it had never been locked. As if someone trusted it would never be found. Marla stood in. The gravel drive, hand still on the ignition key, engine quiet behind her. She'd driven 4 hours on the coordinates alone, buried in metadata, hidden in a file named April. The sky was the color of rain, but it hadn't broken yet. Hardhead, she stepped out. Heartbeat hook. The locket swung once around her neck, then settled flat. It didn't feel like hers anymore. Just wait, she refused to drop. Inside, the air was still. She didn't call out, he wouldn't answer. Instead, she moved room by room, touching nothing, like she was walking through a chapel someone had abandoned. Mid-prayer, the cabin had only 3 rooms: kitchen, living, and the back bedroom. In the kitchen, 2 mugs. One chipped. One clean. In the living room, a blanket folded on the couch, still faintly holding shape. A record player. Spinning, silent, the needle set but not dropped. Heartbeat hook, and a book on the table, her copy of The Bell Jar. Spine cracked where she left it. She sank slowly into the chair across from it. On the mantel, a photo of the lake. Not of him, not of her. Just the dock, empty, waiting. She turned her eyes toward the bookshelf, rows of her books, her underlines, her notes in the margins. Ones he'd once teased her about. You're always writing to ghosts. Now it felt like he'd answered back. The hallway creaked as she walked it. Not from disrepair, from memory. A floor only someone familiar would step across this quietly. In the bedroom, nothing much. A jacket hung on the back of the door, and a letter resting on the pillow, folded once. On the outside, in blue ink, to my almost wife. She sat down. Tore it open with a hand that didn't feel steady enough to deserve it. Inside, 3 pages. His handwriting looped, familiar. The same lines she traced on birthday cards, grocery lists. The post-it he once left on her mirror. Don't forget to love yourself too. She began to read. Marla, know if you're here. It means something broke, or something opened. Maybe both. I hope you came alone. Not because I'm afraid, because I wanted this part to be just ours. I never stopped loving you. That's not the betrayal. That's the anchor. I left because I still loved you, and because if I stayed, they would've broken that love until you couldn't recognize it. Or worse, till you blamed yourself for what they would have done to you. I wasn't strong enough to fight them and keep you safe. I chose safety, not silence. You always said love was the brave thing. But sometimes love is hiding what you want. Most so it doesn't get buried too. I buried. Enough. She paused. The locket touched the letter. Her breath stilled. On page 2, you'll hear stories. From Celia, from my parents. Maybe even from Junie, if she's still alive. None of them know everything. They know pieces. Some helped, some turned away. Some just didn't know how to say no. I was raised on secrets. But I learned how to speak. From you, I tried to leave a trail. The tapes, the receipts. The lipstick, yes, that was intentional. Yours always bled on porcelain. I wanted you to see it and know it was for you. But the photo hid something worse. Marla's throat caught. Page 3. Page helped because she owed me. Not love, not loyalty. Life. She knew things too. And she ran from them the only way she knew how. Into me. But she was never mine. Not like you were. Not like you are. CTA. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page. She felt it before she saw it. A shape behind the curtain. Not a person. A suitcase. Half unzipped. Inside maps. A USB taped to the lining. And one final thing. Her scarf. Folded. Washed. Still smelling like the lavender soap she used back then. Thumbnail moment tag. She lifted it. And underneath another note. Short. Faint. They would have hurt you too. She sat down on the edge of the bed. The scarf in her lap, the USB in her hand. He hadn't disappeared out of guilt, or fear, or shame. He'd disappeared out of love. Retention spike line. He didn't leave because he stopped loving her. He left because he still did. The house was too quiet now. But her voice broke through. She whispered it to the walls. To the mug, to the record player. To the ghost of his hands on her spine, I would have stayed. No answer, just the needle lifting itself from the record. Gut punch ending line, and the couch cushion slowly rising as if someone had just stood. The veil had been too tight. That's what she remembered most about the wedding day, not the flowers or the string quartet or even the taste of champagne she forced down between heartbeats. Just the way the veil clung at her throat, like it already knew. He was 23. Minutes late before anyone dared whisper. She had waited. In the chapel doorway. At the altar. By the stained glass window where the light hit unevenly. The priest had looked away first, then the pianist. Her maid of honor pretended to adjust her bracelet for the 5th time. Heartbeat hook. The silence was thicker than absence. It was betrayal without a headline. She'd told herself not to cry. She'd told herself maybe he was stuck in traffic. Maybe the roads had iced. Maybe he'd gotten cold feet and would come back with warmer shoes. He didn't. When she finally walked out alone, bouquet trembling in one hand, she passed people she used to call family. Some offered tight-lipped smiles. Most didn't meet her eyes. Her shoes left prints on the church steps. Rain had started to fall. And then at the curb, a woman whispered something to her friend. Marla didn't hear it, but she felt it. That's when the shame began. Now years later, she sat in the coroner's office, palms flat on her knees, a folder unopened on the table between them. The fluorescent lights buzzed like doubt. No one had said anything yet. The man across from her wore gloves too clean for the room. His eyes were kind, not soft, just practiced. You requested a second test, he said. She nodded once. I didn't think I'd need to, she murmured. He slid the folder toward her. Heartbeat hook. The results came back this morning. The man you buried wasn't Jonathan Calloway. She didn't touch the folder, just stared at the edge of it. The body was misidentified at the scene. The scar you referenced, we now believe it was surgically created. After death. She swallowed. Staged, she said. You mean staged? He didn't nod. But he didn't deny it either. Who was it then? We don't know yet. The prints were burned. But the DNA is a partial match to someone in the system, a cousin, possibly maternal. We're following that. She didn't respond, because she knew what he wasn't saying. Someone made sure the body looked close enough. Someone wanted her to believe it was him. Retention spike line. But the photo hid something worse. She reached for her bag, pulled out the old cassette, the one that played backward. She slid it across the table. I need this transferred. Professionally. Whatever's on it, he left it for me. He hesitated. I know it's not procedure, she added. But nothing about this is. He accepted it. You'll have it in a week. I don't have a week. She rose, took the folder, didn't open it. Outside, the air tasted like unfinished conversations. The parking lot was mostly empty. A single crow stood on a telephone line overhead, watching like a witness no one called. In the car, she finally opened the folder. Thumbnail moment tag. Inside was a photo from the autopsy. Not graphic, just quiet. The hand. Wrong ring. Wrong. Scar. Wrong man. She traced the edge of the paper with her thumb. Silent setup. Then pulled the envelope from beneath the seat. The one with Detective Moraine's business card. She turned it over. On the back, in her own handwriting, he didn't run. He was placed. She took the torn receipt from her locket, tucked it inside the folder. Let them find the trail. Let someone finally chase something that mattered. Back at home, the voicemail light blinked. She pressed play. No voice, just music, faint, distorted. But she knew the song. It had played the night of the rehearsal dinner. A B-side he'd insisted they dance to. She hadn't heard it since. She pressed it to speaker. And then at the very end one whisper. Not his. Hers. Woman's voice. He told me you'd never stop. The call ended. Her hands went still. Antagonist depth line. She thought of his mother, clutching her rosary the day after the wedding, muttering, "He wasn't strong like you." It hadn't sounded like comfort. It had sounded like confession. Marla opened her laptop. One tab already queued from the last search. Missing persons. Southeast region. She typed a new name into the bar. Aubrey Page. Our autofill caught it. One result. Deceased. But the photo was recent. From a parking lot. Camera. 3 weeks ago. Page hadn't died. She'd been buried in someone else's silence. CDA seed. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page. Marla closed the laptop. And slowly stood. No ring. No grave. No man. Just clues shaped like people. And a love that had turned itself into a crime scene. Gut punch. Ending line. She buried a stranger, so where is the man she almost married? He wore navy. Everyone expected black. That was the first detail she couldn't let go of, the way his suit looked too soft for a wedding, too worn. But still, it was him, standing at the altar like he meant it. That memory wasn't real. It was the rehearsal. The only time they made it that far. Marla sat in the community church basement now, beneath flickering fluorescent lights that hummed. Over coffee stains and chairs too cold for comfort. The real officiant sat across from her. Older now, fatter, still carried his briefcase like someone might ask him for proof of God at any moment. "I didn't think anyone would come asking," he said. She didn't smile. "You married us," she said. "Or were supposed to." He nodded, fingers brushing the edge of a worn manila envelope. That was the plan, until it wasn't. Heartbeat hook. "They said you canceled," she said. "The venue. The vendors, you." "I didn't," he said. She stared at him. "I was paid to say I did." The words landed like glass slipping from a countersoft until it shatters. Paid by who? He didn't answer at first. Instead, he pulled the envelope open, slid a page across the table, a contract, signed, stamped. The name at the bottom. Harold Calloway, his father. She felt it again, that veil around her throat. The wedding wasn't called off by him. The officiant said. It was stopped, quietly, legally. Her fingers trembled as they reached for the next document. Heartbeat hook. A restraining order. Filed by Jonathan Calloway against his father. Date. 3 days before the wedding. She read it twice, then a third. Time. Allegations, harassment, financial coercion, threats of harm to self and fiancé. She blinked hard. "I never knew," she whispered. "You weren't meant to." She thought of the voicemail from years ago, 3 seconds of static. At the time, she thought it was a pocket dial. Now she wondered if he'd tried to call her the night he vanished, if that silence was him deciding whether she'd be safer. Without the truth. Retention spike line. But the photo hid something worse. The officiant leaned forward. I asked him why he didn't just leave the family behind. Change his number, start fresh. Marla raised her eyes. What did he say? The man exhaled slowly. Looked older in that moment than the room around him. He said, "You don't just walk away from blood like ours. You bury it." She reached into her coat, pulled the flash drive, placed it beside the papers. He left these behind. She sighed. Recordings, documents, names. The officiant didn't touch it. "You need to go to someone higher than me." "I already have," she said. "But they buried it too." Thumbnail moment tag. She opened the last folded document. Photo tucked between the legal pages. Him. Outside. A county courthouse. Looking over his shoulder. And beside him, not Page, not Celia. A man in uniform, face blurred. Badge visible. One who lost her initial report. The one who claimed the witness protection files were sealed. Silent. Setup. Marla took out her phone. Opened her voice recorder. "This is for the archive," she said. "For whoever finds the pieces next." She hit record. And read the entire restraining order aloud. Word by word. Then she lifted the old wedding band. She still kept on a chain. His Not hers, and laid it on the table. I always thought he ran from me, she said quietly. But he ran so they wouldn't reach me. Antagonist depth line. The officiant looked down at the documents, then back at her. I shouldn't have taken the money, he said. But I thought I was protecting you both. I didn't know how far it had gone. She didn't answer. Forgiveness felt too expensive now. She slid the flash drive back into her coat pocket and stood. Outside, the sky had turned pink with exhaustion. The kind of color that shows up after storms, not before them. Retention spike line. He didn't run from her, he ran to protect her. She looked down at the street, at the cracks in the sidewalk where her heel once caught that morning. The day she tried to walk toward forever. It wasn't shame she carried. Now. It was clarity. She reached for her locket. Inside was the receipt. Folded once more. And a second slip of paper. Next courthouse. Tuesday 9 a.m. Trust nitrogen monoxide one alone. She hadn't put it there. Gut punch ending line. The vows were never broken, but someone else had started writing them in her place. Before the tapes, before the ring, before the silence, they had a morning ritual. He'd toast the bread too dark. She'd fix the jam line along the crust like a border. He'd kiss her shoulder while the kettle sang. They said nothing in those moments. They didn't have to. That's what she missed most. The unsaid things. Now, silence was all she had left. The tape arrived in a plain manila envelope. No note, no return. Just the object inside an old DV cassette. The kind you had to work to play. The kind that required intent. Heartbeat hook. Taped to the outside. One word, scrawled. Final. Marla sat on the edge of the bed, the portable player humming on the table beside her. She'd found it weeks ago in the attic back when she thought she was searching for memories, not evidence. The tape slid in too easily, like it belonged. She pressed play. The screen flickered, then found its focus. A room. Not familiar, not strange. Neutral, a space made to look like safety. Somewhere between his study and a confessional. He sat in a chair. Older. Tired, in the way that has nothing to do with sleep. Across from him, Junie, and behind them, pacing just outside the frame, his father. Marla didn't breathe. We have to stop pretending, Junie's voice said, low but hard. She's going to find it all. She already started. His father stepped into view. Sharp suit. Cane. A face still wearing its mask. Then we stop her. Not this time. Jonathan's voice. Firm. He looked directly at the camera. If you're watching this, Marla, I'm sorry. I was never brave enough to tell you what they did, what we did. He ran a hand over his face. But you need to know how far it went. Why I had to vanish. Why they made me. Junie shifted. They weren't just laundering money. Marla, they were burying people. Witnesses, partners. The kind of people who didn't sign NDAs. A beat passed, and they would have hurt you to keep it quiet. Heartbeat hook. They still might. The frame trembled. Like someone holding the camera had lost their grip for just a second. Then the angle changed. A wider shot now. The desk between them. A folder. A ring. Her ring. Stained. Not red. Not at first. As the light shifted, the truth darkened. Blood. Fresh. You promised. Jonathan stood. The camera nearly tipped. You told me you just wanted to scare her. I told you what it would take, his father said. You ignored it. Junie rose, grabbed the folder. Mouthed something too fast to read. Fear on her face now, real. And raw. The next frames cut quickly, blurry motion, muffled shouting. Then a slamming sound. Then black. Silence. Thumbnail moment tag. Then static gave way to one last shot. A close dash up. The ring again. On the floor. Still wet. And beside it, a torn slip of receipt. The train station. The one from her locket. Marla paused the frame, stared at it for too long. Then rewound. Played it again. His voice. If you ever see this, you'll know. I never stopped loving you. I just didn't want you to bleed for it. She stood up, paced once around the room, tried to breathe through what her body already knew. Retention spike line. The family didn't just cover it up, they silenced him. She pulled the locket from her neck, opened it, still the same strip of receipt inside. But now she saw what she hadn't before. Tiny ink written along the edge in his handwriting. Play the final tape. It hadn't been a label. It had been a warning and an instruction. She reached for her phone, dialed the detective. Voicemail. Again. She left it anyway. I have the final tape, she said. And if anything happens to me before morning, start with his father, then Junie, then the man in the badge photo. You know which one. She clicked the phone off, sat back down. Silent setup, opened the drawer by the bed, pulled out the second drive, the one she hadn't touched since it arrived anonymously. She now knew where it had come from. Junie. Not out of guilt, out of fear, because some debts don't get paid with silence. Some require blood. Antagonist, depthline, and Harold Calloway had spent decades collecting both. Outside, a car passed too slowly. The porch light flickered. She pulled the curtain closed. And for the first time in weeks, she cried, not because she was broken, because she knew the truth. Now he hadn't died for what he did. He died for what he refused to do. CTA, seed. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page. She rewound the tape, paused it on the final frame. Gut punch, ending line. The blood on the ring had dried, but her name was still carved inside it. When she was a child, Marla once swallowed a stone. Not on purpose, not for attention. It had just looked smooth, round, harmless. She thought she could carry it. Instead, it lodged in her throat until she gasped and spit it back into her hand, wet. Foreign, not hers after all. This moment felt like that. The final tape had ended, but the ringing hadn't. Not in her ears. Not in the room. Not in her bones. Outside, the sky was bruising toward dawn. Pale blue leaking into everything. She hadn't slept. Her laptop screen glowed with open tabs. Evidence, timestamps, contracts, death certificates for people who weren't dead. And one folder labeled, for them to know. Inside 12 files. The raw tapes, the letter, her own statement, unedited. She hadn't watched them again. She didn't need to. The truth didn't change under review. Heartbeat hook. Only the courage to say it out loud did. She clicked upload. It was slower than expected. Like the truth itself resisted going public. On her desk, the locket sat open. Inside, the torn receipt, now unfolded completely. His handwriting clearer in the morning light. If I vanish, don't mourn. Finish it. Her fingers hovered over the mouse. Opened the recording app. Paused, not for nerves, for precision, and pressed record. My name is Marla Hart, she said. I'm not a victim. I'm not a witness. I'm what they tried to bury with him. Her voice wavered, but only for a second. I'm releasing this because silence protects no one, especially not the dead. She lifted the old lipstick tube, still burgundy, still capped. Set it in frame beside her. They threatened him. They silenced Junie. They paid the efficient. They filed the restraining order against their own son then. Ignored it. She reached for the scarred flash drive. Here's the proof. She clicked to attach the files, heartbeat hook. Each one slid into the cloud like a confession that finally had somewhere to land. Then, she paused, looked at the lens. Jonathan Calloway didn't fake his death. They staged it. He didn't run from me. He ran for me. She said the names, one by one. Harold Calloway, Paige Wren, Detective Keene, even Junie, though she hesitated. She was part of it. But she tried to stop it. She left the tape. I don't forgive her. But I understand what fear can do to a person. Retention spike line. But the photo hid something worse. She clicked play on the final clip. His voice. This time, she answered back. I know, Jonathan, she whispered. I know now. And I'm not scared. The screen blurred. Her own reflection in the glass looked younger. Somehow she clicked submit. Then she waited. Not long. It started as a ripple, a ping from an inbox. A repost. A journalist's name in her mentions. Then 2 calls. One from the coroner. One from the state attorney's office. She didn't answer either. Instead, she opened the folder on the table. Inside, a printed photo. The last wedding picture. They took not at the church, but at home. On the floor, laughing. She was still in her dress. He was barefoot, holding a spoon like a mic. Her veil had fallen over both their heads like a ghost, trying to keep them safe. She set it beside the ring. Her voice was steadier now. They wanted me quiet, she said. But quiet is where they hid everything. Not anymore. Thumbnail moment tag. She opened the second drawer. Removed the envelope. Inside, a subpoena she had drafted, but never sent. Now, she signed it. Her hands no longer trembled. Silent setup. She tucked the envelope in her coat. Outside, a car slowed as it passed. She didn't flinch, just pulled the curtain wider. Let them see her watching. Antagonist depth line. She remembered his mother's voice, broken, pleading. We thought silence would keep him safe. It hadn't. It never does. The printer clicked. A message popped up on screen. Upload complete. Retention spike line. They buried his voice, but she made the world hear it. She sat with the stillness. Let it throb through her. Then opened the window. The wind lifted the receipt from the desk. She caught it before it flew, looked at it one last time, folded it again, tucked it back into the Locket. Gut punch, ending line. The stone she once swallowed came back as a voice, and this time, it broke them. He used to trace the scar on her wrist, like it was a map back to her. They never talked about how she got it, just that it stayed. Years later, she still wore long sleeves in summer, but not to hide it. Some truths aren't meant to be erased, only honored. The gravel under her shoes cracked like memory. The path to the cabin hadn't changed much. Pine needles, a forgotten nail poking from the porch step, the same swing he'd never fixed. But it was hers now. Paperwork said so. Deed, title, keys on a ring that didn't weigh as much as it should. She stood still at the bottom of the steps, one hand at her side, the other holding something small and cold. The ring. His. Never buried, never returned. Just carried. Not like grief, like proof. Heartbeat hook. Behind her, laughter broke through. The tree's light, unfiltered. A child's voice, one that hadn't learned to lie yet. Mom! Marla turned. He was barefoot in the grass, hair too long, eyes too bright. She waved once, slow, soft, then watched him run past her into the cabin. Wild and full of a life that had never been threatened. She exhaled. Not relief, not joy. Just breath, finally returned. Inside, the walls had been painted pale again. The smoke stain near the stove was gone, but the old bookshelf remained. Her books, still alphabetized. A few with new drawings in the margins crayon. Suns where her old underlines once were. The locket hung on a nail beside the door. Empty now. She kept the receipt elsewhere. She didn't need it to remember. She stepped into the bedroom. The light filtered in soft and gold, touching the blanket like a hand. On the nightstand, a jar of dried tulip petals. Red, not cheerful. Just true, retention spike line. But the photo hid something worse. She still kept it, folded behind the drawer liner. The one of him alive just before the rehearsal, with someone else's lipstick on his collar. She never showed it to the boy. Maybe one day. Maybe when the silence between facts no longer stung. Outside, a car passed. Too slowly on the distant gravel road. She didn't look up, just walked to the small stone circle behind the cabin, the one they'd built once on a rainy Sunday for future fires. They'd never used it. Now it felt sacred. She crouched, set the ring on the largest stone. Not buried, just placed. faced up where the engraving caught the light. To the end. That was the vow. Shame, defiance. She didn't say goodbye. That had been done already, in echoes, in tape, in everything she uploaded that winter night. Instead, she whispered, "I'm still here." No wind answered. Just the sound of pine overhead, branches rubbing like old bones. She sat beside the ring, opened the old lipstick tube. Still burgundy, the wax long hardened. She held it once, then left it on the stone. 2 relics, 2 stories, 1 choice. Heartbeat hook. To be the last woman standing wasn't victory. It was responsibility. She took out the small journal she carried now. No names on the cover. Just fingerprints. Inside, notes, drawings. Sentence he once said, scribbled in the corner of every page. "You'll know when it's safe." She turned to a blank page, wrote, "It's not safe, but it's quieter." She closed it, slipped it back into her coat. Thumbnail moment tag. The child's voice called again, not frightened, not impatient, just present. "Mom, come see what I found." She stood, walked slow. Stopped at the porch and looked back once. Ring gleamed faintly in the dirt-shadowed light. She didn't take it with her. Silent. Set up. She had something else now. Documents sealed in 3 envelopes. Names spelled right this time. One for every courtroom that turned her away the first time. They waited, tucked in a box beneath the floorboards. But not today. Today was for Echo, antagonist depth line. And somewhere, she imagined his father, older now, forgotten by the very legacy he tried to protect. Perhaps watching the world turn without him. Maybe, once, he'd believed it was love. That control could be mercy. That silence could save. He'd been wrong. Some wounds fade. But scars don't lie. Seed a seed. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page. She stepped inside, let the screen door shut behind her. Laughter rang again, closer now. A question followed. "Can I keep it?" She didn't ask what just said, "If you're brave enough to carry it." Gut punch ending line. And beneath the pine, the ring stayed unclaimed. Uncovered, unforgettable. He once told her that love is memory stretched across time, tense, fragile, unfinished. Like a violin string, beautiful only if it doesn't snap. She remembered that line now as she folded the letter. Not her first. Just the last. The paper was soft from her handling, edges curled, ink smudged at the corner where she'd paused. Too long. It hadn't started like a goodbye. It began as anger, veered into ache, and then against her will became forgiveness. Not the clean kind, the earned kind. The scar kind. The cemetery was nearly empty. Just grass, a few old stones, leaning in quiet directions, and the wind that had learned to listen. His grave was marked only by a name and a date. No epitaph. No lie, just the fiction she'd let them carve. Jonathan Calloway, beloved son, 1987, no end date. No beginning of the truth. She knelt. The letter trembled in her hand, not because of the chill, but because she knew once she left it here, she couldn't take it back. Heartbeat hook. She placed it down anyway. Beside it, the flash drive, sealed in thick glass. Waterproof, fireproof, one of the kind used for time capsules. She didn't bury it. She left it above ground, against the stone. Let the world decide what to do with it. Next. Her voice broke the wind. "You said I'd understand." "I do now." She paused. Then read the letter aloud. "I know why you left. I know what you were trying to outrun and what you hoped I'd never find. But I did. I found the tapes, the false body, the restraining order, the way your name became currency. For a silence that wasn't yours. I forgive you. Not for leaving, but for believing that I wouldn't be strong enough to stay." She breathed in once, deep and steady. "You made your choice. I'm making mine. I'm not carrying the past anymore. Just the part that made me brave. The rest I leave here." Heartbeat hook. She folded the locket open. Inside, just air now. No receipt. No photo, Only a memory. She kissed the locket once, then closed it and set it down beside the letter. She didn't need to wear it anymore. Behind her, the leaves rustled October wind, or something gentler. She turned, just in case. No one there, only the tree they once carved initials into. The bark had healed over it, nearly invisible, thumbnail moment tag. But if you looked close, the scar still spelled her name. She walked to it, ran her fingers along the ridge of it. The J was gone. The M remained. She didn't cry. That had ended years ago, when she finally spoke the truth out loud, when the world listened, and his father was forced to speak under oath. When Junie handed over the backup tapes. When the family name stopped protecting the family they'd taken years from her. But not her voice. Silence set up. And now, somewhere sealed in a courthouse drawer, a copy of the flash drive, the confession, the ledger, the photo. All under her initials. Evidence just in case the past decided to repeat itself. She stepped back from the tree. Let the wind lift her hair. Let it carry something. A bird called once, sharp and brief. The kind of sound that felt like punctuation, antagonist. Depth line. She thought of his mother in the hallway that day, sitting by the door. Hands folded, voice low. We didn't mean to lose him. We meant to save what was left. She believed her. That didn't make it right. Just human. She knelt one last time, whispered into the earth, not a prayer. Just a sentence that had waited too long to be spoken. I was never your widow. She ran her hand over the stone. I was just the one who knew the truth. CTA seed. If justice still matters, you'll want the next page. The sky deepened to dusk. She stood. Turned. Left the locket. The letter, the truth. All of it behind her. Gut punch, ending line. The grave was empty, but now it held what he couldn't.